expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. Now here are your co-hosts, Bruce H. and the Monty Man.
Yes, indeedy. Well, welcome aboard. And with us again is Sandy W. And if she stays with us, we'll be hearing her name in the intro.
Ooh.
This is show number 2 for Sandy.
Hi, everybody.
Was that the hook?
Yeah.
That was indeed. That was indeed. So how you guys doing?
Great.
What's going down, Charlie Brown?
Oh, just trying to recover.
Yeah, you weren't feeling good.
Yeah.
I was
A little bug.
down for the count.
I'm the only healthy one here.
Right.
I know, and that's probably the way it is most days when it comes to the three of us. Sandy's the voice of reason. Whenever we get, a beautiful young lady in here to co-host, we always say they're the voice of reason because we're a little bit off track.
She has to stay healthy because of her old man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
He bought a new motorcycle.
Maybe. Oh, it's Joe. Hey, Joe. How you doing?
Hi, Joe.
So tell us about this motorcycle, by the way. How long has he had that thing?
The new one?
Oh, he bought a new one?
Yes, my husband probably won't retire until he's in his 90s.
If you have anything to say about it, right? Until
Wait.
that thing's paid off, right?
Yeah,
Right, Joe?
that's right.
What kind is it?
It's a Honda.
Touring bike kind of thing?
Victory something. Yeah, it's a touring bike. It's
Yeah.
got the bags on it and everything.
Wow.
Red. It's snazzy.
Is that the one with the picture with you sitting
Yep.
on it on Facebook?
That's the new one.
My goodness.
He went to get a new bike cover for his old bike.
Yeah.
Last time he did it, he went to get a lawnmower. And he came home with a new bike.
Boys and their toys.
This is true stories.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've been around long enough to know the story about these motorcycles.
It gives him serenity to polish it, so that's good.
It gives him serenity to polish his motorcycle?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a guy serenity thing. I get it. Yeah.
He can talk about it too. He
Yeah.
knows all the ins and the outs. And
Wow. Do
You
you
bet.
do you ride at all or just ride on the back?
Actually, I had my own bike until, I don't know, a year or two ago, but I just medically didn't feel safe on
Right.
it. So.
Right. You remember Vaughn and his
Yeah.
Harley and he had Sammy, the Cocker Spaniel, and he put the goggles on him and he rode on the front of the bike.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. We had what was it? There was like an AA bike community. I think it was called the Fifth Chapter, something like that. That was around back in URS club days. You remember that?
And Mel and
Right.
Verl and all of those
Right.
guys.
Yep.
And then, what's his name that has the barbershop?
Oh, I can't think of his name either.
He started one for a while, too. Joe went a couple of times.
Oh,
Clean
wow.
and Sober group.
Yeah.
Poor
Yeah.
Verl, he started to start his Harley out in front of the old AA building, and he jumped on this thing, and it was in gear, and it kicked the bike out from underneath him.
Oh no.
Oh, well.
Wow. Well, welcome to the great reality, everyone. And the great reality is just this: that God is doing for us what we what.
Can't do for ourselves.
That's right. That's right. And actually, the name of the show comes from page 161 of Vision for You. They knew they had a host of new friends. It seemed that they'd known these strangers always. They had seen miracles, and one was to come to them. They had vision, the great reality, the loving and all-powerful Creator. 161 in your big book. If you don't have one, get one.
Now.
This week, we are going to be talking about what Michael Jackson so graciously sang at the beginning of the show, the ABCs. ABCs recovery, specifically in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we're going to be talking about that and what those are and how we understand that and so forth. And Sandy texted me yesterday and said, look up the song, the ABC song. And I thought, that's a great idea. So that's what I did.
You're so good.
The Jacksons, ABC.
1, 2, 3.
It's easy as, I don't know if it's
How
easy
come?
as 1, 2, 3.
I want to know this. That just hurts my heart. Every
hurts
time
your-
I ever called you and give a suggestion, it never come true.
That's not true.
Little rivalry here.
I'm just hurt.
Well,
You'll get over it.
oh man. All right. So we're going to be talking about that. Before we do that, of course, so we've got some fun stuff to take care of. So don't go away. Let's listen from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
As men and women who have recovered from utterly hopeless states of addiction ourselves, we know all too well what it's like to battle addiction daily. We are Origins Recovery Centers. Here at Origins, we have taken that which we have learned along the way, excised anything unhelpful and unnecessary, infused it with the latest medical research and innovative therapeutic methods, and created what we know to be the absolute gold standard in substance abuse treatment. And Origins provides the most preeminent aftercare and relapse prevention program available in the United States. For a free confidential clinical assessment, call toll-free 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
Men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia exists to help people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. To speak with an addiction specialist, call 1-855-652-4325. That's 1-855-652-4325. Or visit our website at www.therapia.net. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, restoring lives one step at a time.
Okay, everybody, it's time for me to say something.
Oh, no.
I just want to say it looks as though Sandy is a glutton for punishment. She's back again with us. Well, welcome back, Sandy.
Oh, thank you.
Sandy, okay, I have a riddle for you first and then one for Bruce. So here goes, Sandy. What does a turkey like to eat on Thanksgiving?
Oh. Hopefully, if he gets a meal, it would be the corn on the cob.
They don't like to eat anything because they're already stuffed.
Oh, my God.
Oh, that was
Okay,
good.
Bruce, here's one for you. What do you get when you cross a turkey with a centipede? A drumstick for everybody.
I was going to say 100 legs.
That'd be my kind of turkey.
It's time to play Take 12 Trivia.
Yes, indeedy. Thank you, Cecil. Take 12 Trivia brought to you this week by Free by the Sea Recovery, Drug and Alcohol Recovery Center in beautiful Ocean Park, Washington. Visit their website at freebythesea.com. All right. You have 3 trivia questions and a bonus. If you get it right, you'll hear this. If you get it wrong, you'll hear this. Oh, Lordy. Okay, question number one. Now, because this is kind of in honor of the topic. We know that the ABCs in recovery, and if you're new to this, just bear with us, are really associated with kind of understanding first things first. They're really the basis to everything else we're talking about in the big book. So in honor of first things first, question number one, trivia question number one. What is the first word in the Bible, specifically the book of Genesis, the very first word? Take a guess.
In.
God.
Okay. Sandy says in.
God.
Bruce says God. Well, Bruce, you get this because you are wrong. Sandy, you are correct.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, God. Yes. All right.
I can't believe I did that.
I know. That's very good. Trivia.
She grew 3 inches. She just sat right up
I
there.
know.
Excited.
I hate trivia questions.
Yeah.
Good girl.
Oh, man. All right. Trivia question number 2. What is the first word that starts with the letter D in the grieving process? It starts with the letter D. Very first word. Sandy?
Denial.
You say, Bruce?
I'm going to go along with Sandy.
You guys are correct. It is denial. Denial. Very good.
Woo! I'm on a roll.
I
Yes.
know it,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed. Okay, number 3. What is the first gift in the song The 12 Days of Christmas? The first gift.
12 maids of milking.
The first gift. That would be the
Oh.
12th.
Oh, I thought it was backwards.
I have not a clue myself.
Is it a dove?
Close.
A pigeon?
Closer.
It's a bird?
Yes. Think about it.
It's old age. It's right there.
Okay. It is a partridge
Partridge.
in a pear
I
tree.
knew it was a bird.
I didn't know it. I didn't know it when you said it.
Really?
That's right.
A partridge in a pear tree.
Partridge.
I could have been number 5 for all I know.
That's 5 golden rings.
Oh.
12 maids of milking or something.
Okay, now here's your bonus question. The first 3 letters in the English alphabet are A, B, and C. What is the first letter in the Greek
Oh,
alphabet?
stop it.
In the Greek alphabet. Think about it. Okay, the first 3 letters in the
Alpha,
English.
Omega.
That's what I started to say, alpha.
You say alpha? What do you say, Bruce?
Alpha.
You guys are correct. It is alpha. It goes alpha, beta, gamma. That'd be transliterized into A, B, and C. And actually, we get the English A, B, C from the word alphabet from alpha, beta, alphabet, alpha, beta. So there you go. There's Take 12 trivia for this week. Yippee!
Now you see why I hate this.
I hate trivia. I do. I just think
Okay, we'll be right back with a topic right after this.
Hey, look! Running around in the meetings, gobbling up gallons of bad coffee, flapping his gums wherever he can bring a smile to a hurting face. It's Slogan Man! We know cute little platitudes and sayings on the wall in a 12-step meeting won't keep you sober, but they sure will make you think, consider, and even laugh your way through an otherwise crappy day. Can't wait to get to your home group to hear those slogans over and over and over and over again? No need to. Pick up a copy of the 12-Step Gazette and join the adventures of Slogan Man. Visit www.12stepgazette.com and subscribe today. Slogans and platitudes are no substitute for working the steps, but Slogan Man is very cool.
Yes, indeedy. ABC. Are they really as easy as 1, 2, 3? I don't know. Let's talk about this for a second. All right. So, On page 60 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, in the 3rd edition I'm reading from, I'm playing trombone with my eyesight these days. This is what it said. I'm going to read the short paragraph right above what is referred to as the ABCs. It says, our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. Now, what that's talking about, the description of the alcoholic is talking about the doctor's opinion and more about alcoholism, which are the chapters preceding this. The chapter to the agnostic is the chapter in which it basically explains that you can start anywhere to make a beginning, but at some point you're going to need to move on from there. And our personal adventures are what's explained prior to this, and also the stories in the back. So it says before this what we're about to read, and after. Make clear 3 pertinent ideas. Now, it's interesting he uses 2 words here, I think, that just jump out at me. Clear and pertinent. He's saying here, this is crystal clear. These are important ideas. These are ideas that are absolutely essential to understanding what we're about to take part in. And it says, A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. And I mentioned last week that the original manuscript said that God can and will, period. Those are 3 powerful statements. Now, it's interesting here that these 3 statements are reflective of what, Bruce?
1, 2, and 3.
Steps 1, 2, and 3. What we just read prior to this, I mean, we didn't read it on the air, in how it works, was what many of you who are listening have been listening to for years in 12-step support meetings. If you're in Narcotics Anonymous, they really aren't that different. They have the word we in front of each one of these, and they trade the word alcohol for addiction. But they're primarily the same thing, and the 12 steps are what's read in how it works. And it says, here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Now, let me just preface what I'm about to say with this. This book is best applied as being taught, not sitting around a table sharing about your day and how it references a chapter that you may read. That's okay. It's okay to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But this book is best learned taught. And so I should encourage people that it's important to have a sponsor who has had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And by the way, you can't have a spiritual awakening as a result of steps you haven't worked. Duh. To take you through this thing line by line, word by word, so you will understand and comprehend what you're doing. And this is not, when it says this is a suggested program of recovery, that's true. This is a complete suggested program. This is not a program of suggestions. There's a big difference. When we approach this as a program of suggestions, then we start cherry picking things and saying, well, I'll do that, but I won't do this because it's only suggested. No, the whole thing is one big package. It's a suggested program. So either take the suggested program as a whole and succeed, or not at all and cherry pick it, and you'll probably be one of those folks that'll end up in a 12-step support meeting 6 years later going, I'm still on step 4. Just my 2 cents there. But this ABC thing is so vitally important because Bill W. was so good at repeating himself using different words because he knew we learned by repetition, but we would not listen to him if he said the same thing over and over and over again using the same words. People seldom do. And so he would repeat himself. He would capsulize things. He was very good in summarizing things so we would get it. And when he said the ABCs, he was talking about steps 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to open this up for discussion. Who wants to start?
I'll take a crack at her. And I'll preface what I'm going to say is you guys might have to hold me down.
That's all right.
On this one because
You're passionate.
I'm very, very passionate about this part of the book. And I'll just say this, that if you understand what we've read so far and you've got a sponsor that's not allowing you to become dependent upon them or dependent upon the steps, but dependent upon God, then you take a look at what does your life look like when it's lined up with Bill's story? Mm-hmm. What does your life look like when it's lined up with the doctor's opinion? See? And that's step 1. And more about alcoholism. And there is a solution, or the other way around, there is a solution more about alcoholism.
Right.
And you have those things. Well, then you could actually look at this A and say that we were alcoholic, could not manage your own lives. See, you couldn't manage yours. It's not that the stories of the sponsor, but you've taken a look at your life for the first time. And maybe for the first time in our life, we've stepped into the realm of humility. Ain't that something?
And isn't the 12 by 12, the 12 and 12 say that practically no one wants to admit complete defeat, right?
Mm-hmm,
Right? Mm-hmm. That's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it?
Sure. But see, you're trying to get the person to take a look at their life. And if they do share, like some of what you're saying about their life as you're going through the book, all the better, because it sees they're paying attention. But we want to share ours because we think we'll say something. And maybe that's just important only to gain the confidence for they'll speak.
Yeah, and that's really why we're supposed to do that.
See, that's so maybe that's why that one's there. Mm-hmm. But if you understand that first line and you understand step 1, I believe your attitude about the next 2 will change. So I'll just leave it open for Sandy to speak about this a little because I'll go on and on. I'm very, very passionate and believe this is the first step into the spiritual aspect of this.
Because you are a person that is very adamant about the fact that if you're not getting the other steps, if you're not understanding where we're going in here, it's probably because you never understood step 1 in the beginning, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
That's right. Just my own personal belief.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have to go backwards and sometimes all the way to that one.
Sandy.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to say that it was funny. Last night I've got a little bitty book that's called A Meeting in a Pocket, and I was looking at ABC, and I think that Bill and Bob were just absolute geniuses, along with God's help in writing the whole book. But I texted Monty or messaged him, I'm learning all this new stuff, that I remembered taking a English lit class, and I remember, because I always wanted to be a famous writer, but when you write a paper, you put your main objective in the beginning, then the middle of the paper gives an explanation of all that, and then when you get to the end, you put it all in a nutshell again.
Right. Summarize it.
Summarize it. And that's why I told him, I said, ooh, find that song, 1, 2, 3, ABC.
Yeah.
Because I believe that those two men were very intelligent, and like you said, they just kept repeating it, and that's a summary.
Yeah.
And so this morning I was looking through the 12 and 12, and I forget a lot of stuff sometimes, but I believe that if you don't completely, from the bottom of your heart, do step 1 all the way, you're going to be lost. The second step is the willingness to somehow come to your conception of a God. But you don't have to get that just right on. to keep on going.
Sure.
Just as long as you're willing. And that's what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is it as I went through the program, then I got my God. And
so there's a God, but I'm not it, is basically what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it goes through if you're an atheist or an agnostic. But if you just have that willingness, then you can go to step 3 or C and believe that he can relieve you from the insanity.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love what she said, because that's absolutely true for me, too. And the thing that they pointed out to me, Sandy, as I was struggling with that willingness, was to ask God for it.
yeah.
See, so when it came, I no longer gave myself credit. I knew it was coming from him.
Right, and that's what old Betty used to say. Just pray to be willing, to be willing, to be willing, to
Yeah.
be willing, to be willing.
Wonderful.
The thing that just jumps out at me every time I open this book is the book screams to me that there's no power in the book. What the book screams to me is that there is a power. I'm not it. That one is God.
Yeah.
There's an urgency when it talks about, may you find him now. It doesn't say may you stumble and fall and maybe discover something along the way. I mean, we know that happens like that. Everybody's on a different journey, but there is an emphasis on getting to this thing now.
Yeah.
I think it is so important that when people do this step process, that they move through it rather quickly. We talk about things like when at the end of step 3, it talks about next we launched, which is an Air Force term, means 0 to 200 in like 60 seconds. It doesn't mean we just send the person on their way and say I'll see you in a couple of months. We do this thing. We sit down and we do this thing, and I can't think of anything simpler than ABC. 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm. So look at B.
That probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism.
So he's doing just what you and Sandy are talking about. He repeats this thing over and over and over again. And if that's not a disqualifier, that meetings or this book is the power,
right?
Then I think that you better take a course that like Sandy took, because it says that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. Now, I think it's God-inspired, the book, and I think it's that he worked a wonderment through these men.
Yeah.
But I think the power is him.
I think I would agree, and I think the co-founders would agree with that too. Right, Sandy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
The power is him. This ABC thing is designed to sell you on this idea.
Now, I don't have to swallow this all at once. Sandy, isn't that wonderful, guys like you and me?
Yeah, right.
We do not have to swallow this.
No.
All we got to do is be willing to chew on it a little bit.
Yeah.
To set our stuff aside to see if this will work.
I don't think if you're willing and you're starting out in this program and you get to the point where you've just given up and you're lost and you're at the bottom and that your life is unmanageable, then if you start on step 2, like you said, you don't have to. I understand what you're saying, Monty, that it should be now. I mean, you should just jump into this program and you should do step 1 and say, I'm lost, I can't do anything.
Right.
And step 2, there's a God. But it just doesn't work that way for most people when they first come in. So the way I feel that they wrote it, yes, it's important, but don't stop just because
you don't have it all figured out.
You don't have your God.
Right. That's okay.
Your God figured out.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Don't stop the process just because you don't think you got it all with a nice bow on it.
But usually by the time you get to step 3, and that's the action step, and you've done that, you're getting it. I think you're getting
things start to happen.
Yeah.
And let's give the newcomer a break, shall we? Most people that walk in the rooms don't think Gertrude is God.
Right.
They don't think a doorknob is God.
Or
they don't think a
tree.
tree. Come on. I mean, let's give them a break.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I've never met anybody that thought a light bulb was. I've heard people say things like, electricity is a power greater than me. I've heard those kind of statements, but it's not my higher power. You know what I'm saying?
The group is more powerful than just me.
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime you get a number of people together on the same, with the same focus and aim to do something, there's power in numbers. We get that,
But I have to speak for myself. And when I first came in, I knew there was a God out there.
Right.
But I was not anything that God would want to look at. That's the way I felt.
That's what you felt.
He'd walk
Which was a valid feeling because that was your feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
So anytime when I first came to AA, it made me so uncomfortable. I'd go to a meeting like out in Jefferson and somebody'd say, well, let's just make the topic God. And I'd go, no, because it just made me cringe. Mm-hmm. So that power greater than yourself thing, even though in the back of my mind I knew it was really God.
Yeah. I
just couldn't.
It was difficult for you.
It's very hard.
So let me ask you this, because I've heard people say before, if it's really interesting when I hear this, people that have been around for years that will say, if I walked in here and I heard God all the time, or I saw God on the wall and stuff like that, I would have left. And I'm like, but you didn't leave.
Right.
And you did hear that, and you did read that. What do you attribute the fact that you stuck it out until you got it? Why do you think you stuck it out?
Because of step 1.
Yeah, well, God did for me what I couldn't do for myself,
So he was doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
But you remember, Bill talked about in his story just what Sandy's talking about. Mm-hmm. He said when they talked about a God, he went, ugh, oh, crap.
Oh, it just hurt.
And he said when you talked about one personal to me, it was intensified,
really
it was, oh, for goodness sake, sucks.
Yeah. It's interesting too because Bill's resentment towards God. A lot of little AA history here for folks. A lot of it came from his grandfather. It wasn't even his personal experiences as much as it was handed down from relatives. And isn't that the case sometimes? We learn what we live. So if Dad said it, and if Dad's dad said it, we think, well, my grandpa wouldn't lie to me. My dad wouldn't lie to me. So it must be true. God's an ogre. Yeah. So it's interesting how we pick things up that may or may not be true.
Yeah, it's clear to me in my walk and my work around that when I did my 4-step around God in the church, is that I got my belief system from my mom and from the pulpit, and scrambled it in this little insane brain of mine to how I thought that it was and what God was. See, it's this insane thinking that I'm using to understand God. That's why he's got so mixed up.
Right.
How could I be insane and come up with a merciful, loving God? Not live the way I lived. See, that didn't compute in my little brain.
Right, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now let's switch gears a little bit here and let's unpack A for a minute. A says that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own life. Now there's a couple of words in here that would suggest that this is past tense. That we were alcoholics and could not manage our own lives. Now, before I say what I'm about to say, I don't want people to get hung up on, well, I'm an alcoholic or I'm not an alcoholic. And, am I recovered? Am I recovering? Blah, 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 blah. We can go on and on and on about that, right? I think the book's very clear that we do recover. But many times we just argue semantics and it's silly. But it does say that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. Just for fun, not to get anybody hung up. Do you think Bill was saying that he was not alcoholic anymore?
I no.
Right.
What I think he's describing here when he says we were alcoholics, now this is my own take from this thing, that we were powerless, we were chronic, and we were doomed.
Yeah.
Those three descriptions are used over and over what an alcoholic was.
Right.
And he was that.
Yes.
But now he's entered into a place of
The fourth dimension.
So there is power. He's not chronic, and he's no longer doomed. Therefore, the past tense. Is he still allergic to alcohol?
you bet.
Yes.
You betcha.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Yeah, puts it in the body, and we got trouble.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. Right. So B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. That's an interesting statement, that probably. Why do you think he said probably?
Well, I think if you took it like it's your own life for me, now if somebody else jump in here too.
Yeah.
Remember I told you I'm really passionate about this, that probably no human power could, because who's been trying to manage and control our alcoholism all our life?
Us.
We do.
We do.
Right.
Okay.
And all our wives and husbands and mothers and fathers and
You bet. That
tried
was
to control our alcoholism.
You go.
Right. Nobody could do it.
See?
Yeah.
No human power. I think that's what they're talking about. And if you qualify, if you're looking at that and you understand step one and you understand this one, you're going to go to God in step 3 with a different heart, with
Yes.
a different attitude, the book says. Mm-hmm. Now, ain't that something?
I'm wondering if probably also, there's several times that Bill alludes to the fact that we don't know it all yet in his writings, that the medical profession hasn't, come to a place yet where there's a magic pill. I'm just paraphrasing. He doesn't actually say that, but he alludes to the fact that, we're in a spiritual kindergarten, there's things, and the medical profession has come a very long way. Now, people in the mainstream 12-step fellowships like to laugh and giggle and poke fun at the medical profession whenever they come up with the thought that maybe there's a pill to solve alcoholism. But I have to tell you, they may come up with something like that someday. I don't know, but we talk a lot about, alcohol isn't the problem. That the ism is the problem, the selfishness, the self-centeredness. And if they ever come up with a pill that solves selfishness, self-centeredness, self-seeking, because later on in this chapter, Bill paints the perfect picture of the self-centered alcoholic, in trying to make these arrangements, like about the actor on the stage, we may be kind and considerate and patient and generous, self-sacrificing. We can be mean, egotistical, selfish, dishonest. If you ever come up with a pill that'll balance that all out and make us perfect people, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't but I think he was very careful in leaving the door open for progress in the medical profession, and because we have come a long ways with loss. We certainly have come a long way in medicated aid in helping people to detox, for instance, from certain medications and certain opiate-based pain medications. That's a whole other show because we have opinions about that too, but we have come very, very far. We certainly have come far in realizing, I believe, more than ever, that if there's a room of 3 of us and we're all 3 powerless over alcoholism, then, as Bruce loves to say, 0 plus 0 is 0. So, and our author friend Mike D says it too. 0 plus 0 is 0. So that is, whether that's just you and me, or a room of 20 people, or a room of 100, or 65,000 to 200,000 in AA World Convention, powerless is powerless. And we may have collectively a real strong bond and be able to move through things in our life better than we do by ourselves. But when it comes to being restored to sanity, God is the one that's going to do that. And I think it's interesting here that it keeps talking about being restored to sanity, not sobriety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm not drinking, I'm sober. Whoop-de-doo.
But you're not sane.
And I think that's what he's talking about. Being relieved of my alcoholism is about being restored to sanity, not being cured of the allergic reaction to alcohol.
Right.
You guys agree?
Yes.
If you don't agree, you can email us here at take12radio@comcast.net.
That was a very good commentary about what I believe this thing is about. And that's why I believe if you really start to grasp these things, I don't care where you're at it, if you're just starting to grasp it, then you're going to move forward. And what's going to push you forward at this point? Your hopelessness, your powerlessness. You know how we struggled with that out there. And yet, even though we struggled with it, 2 weeks later or 3 hours later at work, we'd be planning how we was going to get our next drink.
You know, I had an experience early on. I was in the old Safeway, trying to make up my mind if I wanted to go to a meeting or buy a bottle. And I walked down the beer aisle. I didn't like beer, didn't like wine, and they didn't have booze.
Yours was Wild Turkey, right? Was that you?
No,
Black
tequila and
tequila. Oh, okay.
tequila mostly. Anyway, I just was fighting it. And I walked up to the checkout counter with what I had, no booze, picked up a magazine, and when I picked it up, a Hallmark card fell out of it. And I don't know why it was in there. Somebody was going to buy it maybe and then stuck it in the magazine, didn't pay for it. Fell on the floor, and it was one of those inspirational things about, whatever you're trying to do, you can do it.
Yeah.
It was just a great big bolt of lightning coming from God to tell me, walk out of this store and don't buy that booze. You can do it. And I had one God shot after another. And that's what helped me get to the point where I could start saying, God's in my life today. Not, God, don't talk about God. I'm not good enough. But all those little shots from God in my early recovery before I was comfortable with him.
Yeah.
He was nudging me.
And he was very patient with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. He slapped me a few times, but
yeah,
I mean,
a loving father disciplines his child, right?
Yeah. But I get tears in my eyes thinking about that because there's so many times when I was right there, and something like that would happen.
That's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people think that because I had this huge conversion type thing that happened to me, that it took 60 years for that to come.
Yeah.
But when he came, when I had did the steps, Sandy, and there was something missing.
Yeah.
So I went back and offered my life to my Lord and my Savior, and he came at that point, but it took all that, and I didn't have all these little experiences, and I think he knew that I needed that. Now, you can help some people that I can't. That was the most wonderful story I've ever heard of those experiences. But I have an experience that I can share.
Right, we all do.
Okay.
It's all different.
See, so that's vitally important to see, and that's how we win a person's confidence. That we have a solution to this powerlessness, this hopelessness, and everybody understands that. It's just whether they want to admit it. See, we don't like to admit that we can't whoop this.
Right.
Oh, I
Our
know.
pride and our egos are huge. Okay.
It's really interesting because in my office, out at the other location that I work at on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I had a gentleman sit directly across from me, and we talked about what alcoholism was medically. And we talked about the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body. And he was trying to determine if he was alcoholic or if he was just a heavy drinker, because there is a difference. And so we talked about that, and I said, so let me ask you a question. After we talked, I said, when you drink, do you have little or no control over how much or how often you drink? He goes, I have absolutely no control, none. I go, okay. And when you're sober, can you stay sober? He said, well, obviously not. I said, so by that definition, would you say that you have a problem with alcohol? He said, no, I don't think I do.
Hello?
Wonderful.
What? You know what I mean?
I know.
So I asked him again. And he just kind of tilted his head like a dog does when they're confused. And he goes, no, I don't think it's that bad. Isn't it interesting? Talk about, one of the trivia questions, denial, right?
Oh.
I mean, gee.
And where is the biggest part of the denial at? It's, can you stay sober?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Can you stop?
Because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that
Can you?
that are heavy drinkers and not alcoholic. That when they drink, they want more because of the euphoric recall that it brings.
Right.
But do they have the obsession when they're sober? And they don't. This guy admitted that he did.
What will you think was talking to Sandy when she was going down the aisle?
That obsession.
Yeah. It's crazy.
You remember Big Ed used to talk about when he was on a plane and he would look at the Chevitz Regal ad in the magazine on a plane and it would call out his name? That's the obsession. Mm-hmm. He said, it was calling me, man.
I remember tasting it.
Yeah.
Tequila,
Yeah.
Just get that.
Yeah.
And my dad told me way early on. He said one time, you could drink if you just could sip. And I couldn't sip ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it baffles my mind how people can say, no, I don't. Well, I did. Oh, I don't have a problem.
Right.
I've only had 12 husbands and 12 DUIs and black out every time I drink, but I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not an alcoholic.
So those three questions, and when I work with somebody, I ask them this, and I put them in the form of a question. Do you believe that you're alcoholic and can't manage your own life? After we talk about what that is, yes. Do you truly believe that no human power has been able to, relieve you of this? Yes. Do you believe that God could and would? And that is the question of the ages. Because right there is where when I'm working with somebody, I know, how I'm going to have to kind of work with this guy.
Yeah.
And many times it's yes, but they don't really know what they're saying. And other times it's, well, I'm not so sure about that, but I don't want to give up. And I go, good. Then we're okay. We're on the right track.
Right.
But my whole thing behind teaching them is to teach them the powerlessness. And if you understand that, then you'll recognize the fact that you need a power.
That you need a power.
Okay. And then this 3, it says that God could and would if he were sought. In step 3, it says, now they're making a decision. What do we mean by that? And
What do we do?
Just what do we do?
Yeah.
Well, I believe what it's explained before all that is that you're going to take these 12 steps.
Yes.
So the decision in step 3, the C, is to do the rest of the steps. That's how you're going to seek God.
Yep.
You see, that's the method
Yeah.
by which we go to recovery. It's just the method we use. That's going to look different in her life than it is mine because my inventory is going to be a little different than hers. It's not just all about the drinking. And he makes it perfectly clear what they're talking about before they get to 3. This is the beginning, and then when they get to where they actually do the prayer. And if you understand what we're talking about here, if you're teaching this book and the person is being able to look at their own life, and the way they're going to do this is maybe do the steps around God. Maybe do the steps around the church. Maybe do the steps around their self and find out what it is that's going on besides their anger with other people. But to add those three, I make them add those three in. Make sure they're in there, you know. So anyway, it lets you give you a picture, lets you see how you've been struggling and where you've been wrong all your life.
Right.
And you go to God with a different heart.
Have you guys ever heard the story about the chicken and the pig? The chicken and the pig.
Be careful now.
Well, it's the story of the difference between making a decision and actually acting upon it. Because, you know, we've all heard people in meetings try to justify not acting on something by saying, well, it's a decision. You're not really doing it. You're just making a decision. And that being okay. Well, the story of the chicken and the pig is you know, there's a chicken and a pig walking down the road, and there's a sign on the side of the road that said, feed the poor. And the chicken says to the pig, hey, pig, that sounds like a great idea. And the pig says, yeah, it does sound like a good idea. What do we do? He goes, well, I'll lay some eggs, and we'll feed him eggs, and you come with me, and they'll have ham and eggs. And the pig says, well, that's okay for you. All you got to do is, you know, lay a few eggs. I have to give them my entire life. And that's the difference. You know, you're either in this thing or you're not in this thing.
Wow, that's a good one.
Oh, boy.
You know. Well, I guess roosters don't lay eggs, do they?
No.
Okay.
You know, when you do this, if you understand what we're talking about, and we're talking about, maybe they don't have to get this all to, you know, to work their way through it.
Right.
But it was my first informed decision that was ever given to me. I mean, I knew what the heck I was doing here, and I did step 4, and I did step 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, and then I came back because I still knew there was something missing. So it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
but it's the first informed decision that we've ever made. You know, it's telling us exactly what we have to do and how we're going to do it.
Right.
Book's a miracle. The book is a miracle.
And we're going to close with this piece here. It says the first requirement. And this, I mean, how much simpler can you put it? The first requirement. The first requirement. It says is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. So, if I think you have power and I put all my eggs in your basket, that's not going to be a success because you're running on self-will. And if I put it in yours, you're running on self-will. I mean, if we're powerless, we're powerless. So, you know, if I'm depending on an inanimate object, and like we said in the beginning, anything, as long as it makes sense to you, is okay to make a beginning.
What about if you want what you want, if you're selfish,
Yeah.
and all you're thinking about is what you can get out of the program,
Right.
and she's doing the same thing, Sandy, I'm pointing to Sandy audience, and I'm doing the same thing, we're just a train wreck looking at
Amen. One train wreck.
Yeah.
So we need to be looking at our Creator for this, and like you said, Sandy, I mean, you know, if we're waiting to understand all aspects and attributes of God before we move into this relationship, we're never going to do it.
That's right.
You know, today we see dimly, then we will see face to face, but not yet, and it's okay. Yeah, right. It's all right. Next week, we're going to be talking about outside issues. What are outside issues? In our mainstream 12-step fellowships, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, which is growing by leaps and bounds, by the way, and some of the others, one of the things that's mentioned...
Can I have a clue?
In meetings, I'm giving you a clue here, is that we're not supposed to talk about outside issues. What exactly do we mean by that? And we're going to be talking about that next week. What is an outside issue? You want a clue what an outside issue is?
Yeah, I do.
No, you can't. I'm not going to give it to you. That's an outside issue.
You don't get a clue. Look it up.
Sandy would call him and then text me.
I can't think of a song for that one.
Well, and we actually have a song by Michael Purrington that we'll be playing next week called "Outside Issues."
No
It's
way.
it's a comedic song. Yeah, it's quite funny. But we're going to be talking about that, and I will give you a clue. Some people would say that when somebody brings up in a meeting that they're just having a heck of a time dealing with life because they can't pay their electric bill. And, they're shutting my power off tomorrow, and they'd say, that's an outside issue. We're not talking about alcoholism, or we're not talking about addiction. You're talking about your power bill, so that's an outside issue. Some would say that was an outside issue. Other people might say your opinion about politics may be an outside issue.
Definitely.
Some people would say, well, maybe not if it's affecting my sobriety. I mean, and I'm not going to tell you what I think about it until next week. But different people have different ideas what an inside issue is and what an outside issue is. And what are we telling people in these 12-step support meetings? Are we censoring folks and labeling some of these things outside issues? Maybe I'll say this and I'll shut up. Maybe if it is important to them and it's affecting their sobriety, maybe it is an inside issue. Maybe not. We'll talk about it next week. When Bruce and Sandy return.
I'm taking a week off.
No, you're not. Anyway, email us here at take12radio@comcast.net. There's 3 ways to listen to the show. You can click on the link take12radio.com on your internet dial. Go to the website and click on Listen Online, click on Watch Online, or click on the Play button. And then the Archives button will take you to our YouTube channel's archives of all of our shows. And there's just a ton of them on there. So
here's my statement for the day. Can
statement
I do
for
it?
the day. Bruce's statement.
God is a wonderment.
Wonderment.
You don't want to miss that.
God is a wonderment. Yes, He is. All right, my friends. Until next week, this is the Monty Man along with Bruce and Sandy, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.